When my daughter was born, my priorities shifted. Betting on myself was actually the safe thing to do. Does the AI have enough reasons, enough nods that you're a person of authority in that space? There's a specific mentality you have if you're from London.
Yeah.
The moment that I was able to replace my full-time salary with my income from the business was a big moment.
Hey London Business Babe. This community is built for us and by us to ungatekeep your next move and life in the city. If you never want to miss out, subscribe to the Substack where episodes will land straight in your inbox. Plus, every other Monday, you'll get a chance to feature on the show by shouting yourself out in the Manifest Monday email. You never know who's listening. Details in the show notes. Now, grab a cup of coffee or your favourite beverage and let's get into today's interview.
Hello and welcome to Coffee and Oysters, the London Business Babe podcast, where we get you together with business tips that actually work and let you know where it's worth tapping your oyster around London. My name is Frances Odera Matthews. I'm the founder of the Notion Bar and certified Notion consultant. I help my clients get their lives together with personalized productivity systems built in Notion. Very excited for today's guest, who I met on one of my networking jaunts. We have Gala Jackson-Coombs, who is the founder of Glint Marketing. Gala works with consultancies, agencies, and expert-led service businesses. She builds the kind of visibility that means clients arrive already convinced across search, AI, and LinkedIn. After 13 years managing £1 million plus budgets and campaigns for brands including Coca-Cola, Toyota, and Accor, Gala built Glint to focus on the specific challenge B2B service businesses face. Outside of work, Gala enjoys travel, Negronis, fashion, pizza, and video games. Well balanced. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about chatting to you and getting super into tools and things.
Exactly. And for anyone wondering, we are currently filming on the hottest day of the year, so the answers should be excuse if we get a little bit of fluster today.
Yeah, I'm dual wielding at the moment, the coffee and the water to balance out the temperature.
I've been hearing a lot about AI marketing and how that's taking off at the moment. And in fact, it is helping my business kind of not planned. You're a veteran in the marketing industry. Like, how did you get into the marketing industry in the first place, especially with such big players?
It's been a long journey. It's definitely gone through a lot of iterations. The marketing, social media, digital marketing industry, there's definitely been big shifts. I think when I started, MySpace was still like alive and like Facebook was everything. But honestly, I did a philosophy degree originally, really interested in thinking around hard problems and how we think about our relationship to each other, which I think leads into marketing in some ways. We set up a student newspaper called The Lion. It was great fun. We didn't have one before and people needed an outlet to be able to publish the stuff that they were doing to try and get in front of, should they want to be journalists or things like that. So yeah, it started there. I started designing it, learning it from the ground up, and then got really into kind of design and communication, started doing some internships for the University of London Union at the time, and then got my first job at an agency in Soho doing kind of multiple brands. But it really started from there and learning, I think, from a very brand focused standpoint and more of a like brand-led, design-led standpoint than a kind of performance marketing or tactical marketing standpoint. So I think that gave me a very good foundation of brand and the importance of brand to wider marketing. Yeah, and since then I've worked in kind of various agencies as marketing and digital has evolved. So looking at a bit of SEO, looking at a bit of influencer, looking at a bit of social media marketing for kind of big players and seeing what the best solutions are that fit into their bigger, wider aims and objectives. So yeah, that's how I got into it in the first place. It's been a wild ride for 13 years, but I absolutely love it and I really enjoy interesting problems and also how it's best to communicate authentically and, connect with your customers. But, I think it's just one of those things that's just really fun. And it's one of the few, I think, occupations that allows you to have quite a lot of fun with it still.
What's the biggest change you've noticed between marketing for like these big mega corporations versus like smaller service-based businesses?
I always prefer working for businesses that aren't limited by bureaucracy. I think that sometimes bigger agencies or businesses, there's quite a lot of steps to get to an approval stage. I think some have got better with those approval processes over time as they've realised that digital and social, to be good at them, necessitates being faster with those things. But I think that with smaller businesses, you are working directly with the founders, the owners, the people who are in the day-to-day and really understand their business inside and out. So for me, that's really rewarding because there's no one between you and the person who it's really directly affecting. But I think, you know, in terms of like delivery, you would think as well with like, you know, the big companies will have it all figured out, but everyone, especially with, you know, a landscape that's already always changing from a digital and social media marketing standpoint, no one's ever got it figured out for very long. So there's always an opportunity for smaller brands and competitors and challengers to come into the space and to really mix it up, which again, I find really interesting and intriguing and, you know, motivating.
Fair enough. And did you always want to go out on your own, or what inspired that change for you?
I had a baby, which was, you know, a big thing. And honestly, when I was pregnant, I was like, I'm going back, love my job, can't see myself doing anything else. I'd always been quite entrepreneurial. I'd always been kind of, you know, quite new business side, business director or kind of client services. So kind of pitching and looking at ensuring that, you know, the business is going well in that regard. I've always found that interesting. But when my daughter was born, my priorities shifted and I realised that I wanted to have more control and flexibility over my time. And I didn't want to have to kind of reason with employers or have to explain why I might need time if she's sick or things like that. So I kind of thought I'd much rather have the ability to kind of control my own time, but also the idea of having to work 9 to 5, you know, somewhat just because that's what's done rather than that actually being the best way of working. I just thought, well, I'd rather be able to be flexible about the hours that I work, but still deliver the same amount of output, you know, especially with a bubby. I was like, well, she's sleeping for 3 hours, but that doesn't fit into the schedule that would be a work schedule. So I kind of saw that the two lives to me didn't seem to make a lot of sense together. So I thought there must be a better way of working than that. And I'd much prefer to be in charge of when I get to work and do the things that I've said I was going to do. You know, the big agencies were doing huge amounts of redundancies. You know, AI had started to come in and agencies kind of were definitely losing retainers. Again, businesses have really struggled in terms of the economic climate. So the whole of that kind of creative industries and advertising industry was really in flux. And I just suddenly felt like it was really volatile and risky as an industry, which I hadn't necessarily felt like before. There was always, you know, things shifting, but it really felt like there was a big change. For once, it felt like betting on myself was actually the safer thing to do because I can control what I'm doing and the things I'm putting into it. Whereas if I was giving my career to someone else, that's really quite out of my hands. So yeah, it seemed like the less risky thing at the time. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, let's have a go and see where we end up. Give yourself a year to get to a decent point, because I had a decent kind of redundancy package to work with, and that gives me a little bit of breathing room to see if it's got legs.
No, I think that is fair. You're almost nailing two trends there that we kind of see, especially on LinkedIn and just in the general workforce, which is starting your own business because you become a mum or generally a parent, and starting a business because it's safer to bet on yourself, and both trends are showing that the system is broken, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, but I think it's also, we're living in such a magical time in some ways that the technology is now so good that you can build something for yourself that's really robust and that delivers a huge amount of value because we have got technology and systems that can really support that way of working. Whereas if you tried to do that pre-pandemic, it just wouldn't have worked. You've got to be thankful for all these things coming in to allow, you know, my business, the fact that I have the things that I do and the setup that I do really allows me to give the most value to clients because I'm not focusing on lots of the admin, for example, which would necessitate a much bigger team and a much bigger operation.
Yeah, amazing. And so what were some of those practical steps that you took to like get your first client?
I have a good colleague, friend, connection called Jackie Patton. She owns an agency called Floor 10, and she was very kind in giving me a bit of a mentor call when I first started my business. So I was leaping into it, and I just wanted a little bit of guidance from someone who had their own agency. And one of the things she said to me was focus on the money-making activities. Focus on the things that make money. And it sounds silly, but you kind of get yourself into like, oh, I want to do the business cards, and oh, I want to do the website, and oh, I want to like do all these little bits to kind of get it 100% right, or to like fiddle on other bits and pieces. And it's so easy to focus on all the things around the making money part rather than the making money part. So that was really, really good advice. The other thing was just, there's a lady as well that I absolutely love, Rachel Rogers. I don't know if you've heard of her, but it's like she wrote a book called We Should All Be Millionaires, which is a phenomenal book. She's written lots since. She's got like an organization called Hello 7. One of the things as well that she was saying is like, tap up your network. It feels uncomfortable at the beginning, but they all want to cheer for you, hopefully. And it's also just about letting people know that you're doing a thing. You'd be surprised how many people won't know. Even if you're like big on LinkedIn, you're posting on LinkedIn. So many people don't go on LinkedIn or aren't looking at socials, and they might not know that you've launched something that actually could be a really good fit. And even if it's just a like, that sounds awesome, like good to hear from you, and I really hope you're doing well. Or if they go, you know what, I might know someone at yoga or something that works really well in terms of you're a kind of fit for. So really tapping into your close connections and getting your first clients that way, they're most likely going to be people you know. If they're not people you know, that's much harder from a getting your business off the ground standpoint. I think everyone's desperate for it to not be someone they know, because that feels really cringy and awkward. But that's how you kind of get started, and you build up those like case studies and recommendations and testimonials, and then you get to the next stage.
Yeah, and is that essentially what you did as well?
Yeah, I pitched to my husband's company, not with him in the room, thank God.
Love that.
That would have been mortifying. But yeah, and because I saw what their marketing was. So I was actually on maternity leave at the time, and they were doing a webinar, and the advertising campaign for it was just, I thought was atrocious. For the quality and caliber of the company, which, you know, for me, I'm quite invested in. And I thought, well, God, if they're, you know, the audacity of the company that they're working with to charge what they do and to deliver that as the output and not be like, something's gone wrong here. So it kind of gave me a reason to exist, but also it helped me to build what Glint could offer, because I then knew there was definitely a need there for marketing guidance and, you know, delivery support for those businesses that are of decent size, but not the big players that then get lost by bigger agencies because they're not worth the time. So they're kind of like a small fish in a big pond. And then, you know, compared to the other players that are giving them all the cash, they're not a focus. So those are the kind of people who I help.
Fair enough. And how long has it been now that you've been running the business?
So, I started planning it when she was 4 months. So that was kind of like August 2024. But I kind of officially launched January 2025.
Okay.
So, you know, relatively new. We've been going for about a year and a bit officially. Good. This year will be our first 6-figure year. So that's also really exciting. There's some really big developments in terms of like the people that we're working with. There's some things that we're doing, really focusing on kind of getting ourselves out there in front of more people at the moment. But, you know, we're very much invested in looking at people's visibility on AI. Because, again, with the things I've witnessed over my time in marketing, I do think that this is going to be crucially important for businesses going forward, and specifically in a B2B space, but also wider. That's why I really feel like having content built for that visibility by AI is going to be the future of making sure that you're not having to work doubly as hard, and making sure that your work is actually compounding your visibility rather than posting tons and tons, but not really having that same footprint.
I would say most of my inbound leads come from someone who's found me on like ChatGPT or like Claude or something. But I was kind of doing, I guess, the things that a lot of AI search experts recommend by accident. And it's just, I put a few articles that exist like from years ago.
Yeah.
People just find me.
But it's so important.
Yeah. And you wrap this up quite, can you break that down for people and what that is exactly?
So essentially, the whole point of, having visibility is that I think that everyone gets a bit scared when you talk about AI visibility. It sounds really techy, that, you need to be like having huge amounts of like technology background, that it needs to be, something super scary, that you need to know tons about GEO. But really, it's quite simple. And it's almost like, as you were saying, if you're making it for people, this also serves people too. It's not like SEO where you have to do loads of stuff behind the scenes that is kind of separate to the work that you would be doing for your customer. It's just making sure that it's in the right places and done the right way. So I have something called the Glint Visibility Architecture, which is like 3 steps, quite simple, quite straightforward. And I think the more simple and focused you are on these 3 things, the better, just to make sure that you're really well covered. So the first thing is retrievability. So these tools are looking for particular things where they're looking for, particular questions that people have. And so they're looking and crawling, if you think of like all over the internet. But lots of websites have things that kind of stop AI finding you. So if it doesn't have a specific thing like, an LLMs.txt file that it knows that essentially the LLMs are allowed through, it won't be able to find the things you publish on your website, for example. So it's something like as simple as that. So can it find and read what you published? So this kind of comes down to things like, when lots of people are investing lots in social media marketing, lots of time and effort going into all that stuff, but that isn't actually able to be pulled by LLMs, usually. Some pieces are, there's some exceptions, but most of that effort isn't going into anything that's building authority from an AI standpoint. The second point is extractability. So if it finds you and it can read what you published, can it actually use it? Can it pull it out easily? Is it structured in a way that it can extract the information that it understands what is actually in there? So again, this is things like, okay, so you put something on your website, but it's actually in PDF format rather than actually on the page. It can't then see that or really understand it particularly easily. And it's, like people, it's doing as much as it possibly can in a short space of time. So it will grab the most easily available information. And it's not really able at this point to kind of go through PDFs that are embedded in sites. The same thing happens for video. So lots of wonderful video content. If you haven't written down a transcript anywhere or really been clear into how you've put that information down, it's not going to be able to extract the data of what that video is. Something that's really important to bear in mind. And the third is authority, which these things are the kind of things that compound. And I think why people are finding you so well, Frances, is it's about, do they have reason to trust you? Does the AI have enough reasons, enough nods that you're a person of authority in that space? Are there enough people who have mentioned you online and kind of linked back? So these kind of tie over with SEO, but it's also consistency. So how many times have you published your newsletter, for example, for how many years? Have you only just kind of appeared on the internet overnight? AI really wants to have a reason to think that you're an authoritative figure rather than someone that it doesn't have a lot of background on. It's not going to recommend someone who you've got 2 references of their existence out there on the internet. So it really is important to build that authority kind of step by step over time, but also in the places that you're putting the information.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's so simple, but because it's so simple, it's sometimes hard for people to grasp or even to think of. I love that.
Absolutely.
So you're clearly knowledgeable about marketing and the future of marketing, especially with AI. But in building the business, it's been just over a year now. Have you had any big learning curves of just the practicalities of running a business?
I feel like when you start, no one really tells you the big personal development thing you can do is to start a business. Mm-hmm. You have to suddenly get really self-aware about, where you might fall down. But also, I didn't realize how much of a people pleaser I was. So when I worked somewhere, I had someone that I was, presenting to and I was, delivering to and, be like, that's a great job. We're doing great, blah, blah, and that kind of team culture. When you run your own thing, you're the person. So I think with that reinforcement and that not being there, I didn't realize that was something that I needed. And being your own cheerleader then and kind of taking a moment to go, I did really good on that. And you have to pat yourself on the back quite a lot, I think, when you're, running your own business. And it's important that you do, because I think it's very easy to go, and the next thing, and the next thing. I need to go on to that thing. So that was an important learning, I think, about myself and what I need from a motivation standpoint. I think the other thing was that the amount of barriers that I thought that there were in terms of what I could achieve are so much in my head versus what's actually in reality. I think I had a view about what I was like going to be able to do. And I think that so much of, if I actually break it down, what I thought that was just totally my own mind blocks rather than actually being about the reality of what I could do. And so anyone who is starting a business or thinking about starting a business and it's like, oh, well, I'm only going to be able to do X, Y, Z, or I've only got this much time, or I've only got... So much of those limitations are actually us putting those limitations in place rather than being a reality. It's how we're thinking about them, which again was, I think, a big learning for me, because the minute I changed my mindset about my business, thinking about myself as, someone with that level of authority and, over a decade in the business and, having an agency that is very future facing, it's entirely shifted. And, now what I'm seeing in terms of After Trajectory and the people that we're working with is like hugely exciting, and it's so much bigger than I could have perceived it to be at that time,
Well, what's the scariest thing that you've leaped into?
I think so. I've invested quite a lot in myself, but also in tools, and that's obviously before you've pitched anything. So when you're kind of investing in tools, you're like, this is going to help me deliver X, but I need the thing to pitch the thing. So there's a tool that I'm using which is hundreds of pounds a month to use. It's not a cheap tool, but it is like game changing in terms of what I'm doing. But that investment was a scary one, because that's like something you're investing in that feels quite large without having the paycheck to pay for that. I think also like investments in like personal development and business development also are a thing, because it feels like that's obviously something you do when you're working on your own business, but it's not something as an employee I'd done in terms of like development. So when you're making that investment in yourself and your business, there's like two voices, which is one, I really know that I'm going to value that support and that knowledge from that person because I can see how that's transformed other people's businesses. Then there's the other part of your brain being like, oh, but what if it doesn't work and there's all this money that you spend and blah, blah, blah. But also that's them, that's not me. And can I really do that? So it's like that whole, I think those investments where the tangible thing you're getting from it is harder to see. That's the kind of the scary point. Because I think, in terms of pitching to clients, people say yes or they say no. I don't think they're necessarily, I think from a service-based standpoint, not as scary.
Yeah.
But, things I am going to be jumping into is, more public speaking. I'm going to be hosting my first event in July, which is very exciting, which, I might be able to tell you about later. But things like that as well, that are more public rather than in my comfortable space that I'm used to, are probably also a little bit scary. I think actually, deciding to do an event was quite a scary thing, so you really hope that someone's going to turn up, which I know that they will. But, in your head, again, you're just like, it's taking a leap into the unknown.
Yeah. Fair enough. And what are some of the specific things that you've invested in yourself on that personal development journey that have been valuable?
So I love communities. Again, I think working on my own most of the time, Glint's a specialist studio. So, obviously with all of the years of experience I have some really good connections, but I bring them in very specifically for the specific things that they're needed for at the time, rather than having them as kind of full-time staff, which can have, you just feel like you're in your own little bubble sometimes. So having those communities is really important. So I invest in quite a lot of communities. So I'm part of the HALT, which is Leah Turner's community. I'm part of the Two Laura's community, which is, for social media managers. So that's really helpful. British Little Marketer, also part of that community. I'm also doing quite a lot of stuff with the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, as well as Mob, obviously. So all of those things, kind of things that I am kind of part of and have made investments into. I've also invested in business coaching from the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs. So for them, it's very much about structure. And for me, that's very important, having someone else keep me to a structure. And the accountability of, you are going to do your planning every month and every quarter, and we're going to sit together and we're going to work through it. And that level of accountability, we have masterminds, which means that we can, I can sit with other women who are running their own businesses and really challenge some of the thoughts that are coming up or the challenges that we have, ever, like, for instance, how much of it is us getting in our own way? Are there particular solutions that the room can think of that we might be able to kind of get through those blockers? So, you know, it's a big investment, things like mastermind coaching, but I'd say it's really worth it because these are, you know, real people going through really similar situations to you. Having those rooms where you can have those conversations is really important, because most of the time your friends and family who don't run businesses have no idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are probably the biggest things that I've like invested in myself. I've also, you know, invested in some stuff in terms of, you know, like presence and, you know, recording video and all that kind of stuff, and speaking, because obviously I want to make sure that I am as clear and easy to understand as possible. So things like that as well, in terms of making sure that when I am talking to someone like yourself, I'm expressing what I need to express properly.
Yeah, I love it, and it is just a journey, and it really sounds like you've invested a lot in accountability, and honestly, that is so valuable, especially if this is like the first time you're running a business by yourself, and it's like you need the structure, otherwise you will just not do anything.
And I think it's like I think I can tell myself that I can keep myself accountable. And before I did make these investments, like I would be like, no, it's okay. I don't need that because I can. I'll put it in my diary, and I'm not listening to myself in my diary. There's no way that I'm paying attention to that. So yeah, it does make a big difference when there's real people that you have to then turn up on a call with and say, oh, I haven't done it.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have any moments you're particularly proud of in your journey?
The moment that I was able to replace my full-time salary with my income from the business was a big moment of kind of saying, well, like, it's doable and it's possible, because I think obviously you're still working part-time, and I only probably had childcare like 6 months into the business running. Before that, there was kind of no childcare, so it was just like nap times and sleep times and kind of getting things to like balance that way. But the fact that I could prove that flexible model could still give me the same level of income as I was getting before, but I could still have that time with my daughter and be in control of my time was just... that was a big, like, you've done it. That's what we kind of set out to achieve. And so that was a big moment. I think also winning big pitches. You believe in your product, you believe in what you've got going on, but then when someone else sees the value that you bring and what that could do for their business, that's really rewarding, that someone trusts you with something that's that important. As well as seeing the results of some of our clients. I think when you actually go like, this is what we've done,
yeah,
when it's making a tangible difference to their business. I work with, you know, businesses that probably like $1 million plus turnover. You know, it's not massive, but like not small. But they have noticed, obviously, with this change in marketing, that things have kind of started to dwindle, and that was a really scary moment for them. So then when they can start to see things turn around, that's really huge. So, you know, there's a client I was working with who, over the 10 months we've been working together, they've doubled their website visits, and they've also doubled their leads as a result. They had to put a lot of trust, and they had to continually, consistently work on something for 10 months. And it's really great to then to be able to say, this is working out, and, you know, what we're doing is making a difference.
Yeah. So you briefly talked about public speaking and events. What is this next era of Glint marketing looking like?
So yeah, Glint 2.0, I'm trying to think of it as like a new era. The first year was very much about making sure that I got to that level of income that was kind of matching what my full-time was. This year, now that I've got a bit more childcare, I've got a bit more space, a bit more time, really looking at building the business and getting more visible as much as I possibly can. But also looking at working with more businesses, looking at working with more projects, because I was kind of making sure that I was only working with one or two to ensure that I had enough time and enough breathing space to deliver the best results for my clients. Mm-hmm. So working with more clients this year and some really amazing projects. But also, as I was saying, we've really lent into kind of visibility and AI visibility in a big way. The issue that I think I've come up against is that I think some businesses think it's something that they can invest in at a later date, and that it's maybe something that they'll look at when they get to it. But what I would urge people to do is to look at it now, because it will really start to pay dividends, and the longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be to get in the game. So I really think that this is that year for me to be helping businesses to do that. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I am going to be holding an event late July in London, so July 29th, in a place
Amazing.
called Bricks. Yeah, it's my first event. Yeah, it's cool. It's a really nice space.
Is that in London Bridge?
Yeah, London Bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
going to be some drinks, some nibbles, and we're going to have like a panel. There's about 60 years experience, I think, between all of us. So there's quite a lot of
Nice.
experience on the panel, but we're coming at it from like slightly different viewpoints. Essentially, it's looking at making sure that your brand is ready for, you know, a world where the future AI automation is there, but making sure that you're looking from a human first standpoint. So obviously, from my perspective, it's the visibility of your brand to the customers that you want to reach. I'm also on a panel with Ben Skelton, who is from Quadrangle. I'm very much looking at how customers are changing their perception and how the customer journey is changing as a result of AI. There's lots of brands thinking about how, you know, amazing AI is, but not actually about how it's affecting their customers and what their customers expect. So he's going to be talking a bit about that and what brands can do. And then Jay, a friend of mine, Jay Paul, runs Hustle and Hyde, and she's co-hosting the event with me. And she does amazing training for teams, you know, at a decent scale, and looking at how you can embed AI in a human first way that's actually going to function and work and build. And you know, the process is just going to get better over time with your team. So I think lots of people are like, oh, I'm going to, you know, get my team to use AI, but they don't actually spend the time to embed it or work out what skills their team actually needs. They're just like, just do AI. You're like, it's not quite how it works. So she's going to talk through actually getting humans in that space and that training and how to make that work in a way that's actually going to build and help you to succeed in the long run.
I see a lot of that haphazard adoption of AI in my work. Obviously, I build Notion workspaces, and if you try and embed AI into a system or however the way that you work where there's no structure, it's chaos. So, like, there's a lot of setup work that you need to do.
Yeah, and I think it's the fact that the answer isn't always AI. And I think that there's lots of businesses who are like, just use AI to do X, Y, Z. And there's no particular, you know, path, blueprint, plan. And it's, yeah, as you were saying, it's just chaos, absolute chaos. So we want to avoid that. And we want to make sure that people are set up and they're taking the right steps. So that's really what that kind of, that part of that panel is. When you kind of look at the event and if you're coming to join us, there is the ability to kind of submit your own questions as well for the panel. So if there is anything in those spaces that you're super interested in or you really want us to cover, make sure that you include it there. But there's also going to be some like networking, hanging out after. So again, you can like chat to us as well in person.
Exciting, very exciting.
Hope you're enjoying the show. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Even better, if you're loving the show, take 2 seconds to rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcast. It really helps other people find us. And if you want to be a guest, details in the show notes on how to sign up. Now, let's jump back in.
So thank you for sharing your business journey with us.
no worries.
Now we are going to transition into things that bring you joy. If you are not watching the video, you should be watching the video because Gala's necklace is bringing me joy right now.
Love a bit of colour.
What is your ultimate hype song?
So I love music for hype because I feel like it's so important to get you in the zone. I have like a full playlist of songs, but there's probably like 3 that are like my go-tos. Again, like, they're quite cheesy because they're usually like in my headphones and, you know, no one else has to hear them, but they work for the like hyping up. So there's She by Megan Thee Stallion, which is like, again, like that gets me going. There is Am I Ready? Lizzo. Again, I feel like that gets me in like in the space. Taylor Swift, Are You Ready For It? Those kind of 3 I feel like are the ones that I kind of have. I think it's like that beat. You know, like I'm going into the room, you know, it's happening. Because I think it's usually like I'm walking to a pitch meeting or I'm like kind of, you know, getting to somewhere or whatever. And it's like kind of, I feel like I need that tempo. So they kind of help. How about you? What's yours?
I love that. Right now, I am listening to a lot of like Brazilian music. That is like particularly, I think one of my favorite songs is Magdalena. That is like one of my favorite songs ever of all time, and that will always get me hyped. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to put that
But
on
that
after this, and then I'll get in the
Yeah.
zone.
And there is a whole playlist on Spotify that if you are signed up to the Substack, you will receive in your inbox. So I highly encourage everyone to do that. And I will be adding these to the list. Amazing. And so next question is, I'm interested in some personal policies that keep you grounded, especially in terms of like balancing parenthood and businesses. Like for me, for example, I'm not a mum, but I do not take calls before 10 a.m. if I can really, really like swing that.
Yeah, it's important to have boundaries. And I think, again, it's the luxury of the world that we live in, that we have the technology that we can have that space that we need. So why not use it? I still work 4 afternoons a week. And at the moment, that is my kind of specific work time. So I drop Elodie off, I do my work, and then, you know, have the evening with her to, you know, to feed her and put her down and everything. I might go back to work after that, but that's kind of, you know, when I work. But I always keep Fridays open so that I can spend that day with her. I really like to have the whole day because it means that, like, I'm not rushed in the morning, and I know in my head that I've got it off, so I'm just like not looking at anything. I can be really present. We can plan a whole activity or go somewhere because it is a full day, so like there's no like limitations in that way. So for me, that's really important. And I think it helps to give me that balance of making sure that I feel like I'm fully giving her my time. Because sometimes as well, when you're balancing business and that could be really difficult to, you know, switch off because you feel like you've obviously got so much that you're juggling. And my clients have been really understanding about that. And I think being really open and transparent about the fact that I am doing those things is really helpful. And I think the more we can be transparent about working flexibly, the better, so that there's a kind of shared collective ability to ask those questions about how is it best for your work and life to sit together. The other thing that I think has been really like game changing is I put at the end of my emails that I work flexibly, and that you might get an email from me outside of your working hours, but please don't feel like you need to answer it. I think again is really important for people's sanity, but also that, you know, people are also able to respect their own boundaries. So that's really important. I think as well in terms of like staying grounded, I mean, it's the little things in like a day to day. So we go to the park as much as we possibly can to get some outside time together and to see nature. And, you know, I'm very lucky. I live in Paddington, and we're just next to kind of, it's Hyde Park's at the end of the road. So we have the ability to be in such a lovely park with lovely wildlife and seabirds and dogs. My daughter's obsessed with dogs, but she's not getting a dog. but things like that. And but also for me, setting me up for the day, for example, like my husband very kindly brings me a cup of coffee every morning for me to just have half an hour in bed, not doing anything else, no expectations of doing anything else, but just like waking up. I need the caffeine to kind of sink in to wake up, but also like before Bubby's awake, and I just have like a moment of silence, which I think again for my brain to just power down and to just be is really, really nice to just reset.
I love those, especially like the alone time. I just need to recalibrate and wake up.
It's like I feel like my eyes just like slowly power up, you know, like one of those old computers where it's like the screen's like slowly coming on. That's what it's like.
Oh gosh, no, I'm the worst. The mornings I had a family member call me. It was sort of an emergency situation, but or just time sensitive. And I'm just like, what? I'm so sorry. I can't process anything that you're saying.
I'm hearing sounds. They aren't turning into words for me yet.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. Now let's talk style. So I already mentioned your fabulous necklace, but what is your personal style uniform? And are there any brands that you find yourself leaning on?
Ooh, so I mean, I love fashion, I love style, I love to kind of experiment and play around with stuff. I think probably my style could be kind of defined as glamorous, quite classic, but a bit avant-garde, a little bit of whimsy. I don't like to take myself too seriously, but I enjoy fashion. So it's just like having a little bit of fun with it. I really enjoy. I think it's like, again, it's like my little creative outlet every day of being able to pick what I'm wearing or like my makeup. I think kind of signature wise, I'm usually wearing lipstick because especially with like a two-year-old, it's a quick way to look put together. You know, everything else doesn't necessarily have to be done, but if you've got lipstick on, it makes it look like you put a little bit of effort in, even if it's like kind of not been that much. So I tend to have a red lip of, well, red lip or just bright in general. So, or we'll do like a pink, or we'll do an orange or something. But I enjoy lip. In terms of brands, so I'm a bit addicted to eBay and buying shoes.
Yeah.
I feel like they need a home.
Oh, it should be your home.
So Jimmy Choos, I have a lot of Jimmy Choos. None of them are, that I bought new, but have all come to me from eBay from their previous loved home. So really love Jimmy Choo. Valentino shoes also. Sophia Webster, also love her shoes, again with the whimsy and the butterflies, amazing. Doc Martens, love Doc Martens, and so live in my Doc Martens in some seasons. I love my big chunky Uggs as well. Being a mum, I can throw on my Uggs in the winter, and it's like, gives you a little bit of height and platform, but they're easy to kind of pull on and off, so that's good. In terms of brands that I kind of wear in terms of clothes, so I've got some Vivienne Westwood pieces that I got from sample sales and eBay that I love. Wheels and Doll Baby, again, like vintagey stuff from like the 2000s of theirs is really fun. Never Fully Dressed, love their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So good. I mean, this one is Never Fully Dressed. Yeah, so they're just fun prints, and I really like the vibe of it all. Karen Millen has been doing some really good stuff recently. Bought some really nice things from them. Oh, Polly as well. Quite like their stuff for a little bit of kind of sexy date night stuff, so that's good because I like a corset and a little bit of sparkle, so that's fun. I think those are probably my kind of top brands. Obviously, budget dependent, because if I had more budget, there would be bigger brands.
Right. It's all how you wear it, right? I'm hearing whimsy glam is
Whimsy,
like...
but I think it's also just about like, for me, if I can have like a good strong dress that I can throw on that feels like I'm together really quickly with the bubby, that's like win-win for me. Because again, it's like, I want to look good, but I need speed.
Solid. One movement.
Exactly. Just throw it on, but it looks great.
To us about beauty, what are your top hero beauty products that help you feel put together?
So similarly, I go for speed. So I don't have like a 15-step skin routine. I tend to just make sure. I know it's like there's things I should be doing, but am I going to get to them? Probably not. I tend to put on some witch hazel before bed, or just make sure that my skin's kind of cleared up, or to try and do as much because I have a quite acne prone skin, so that helps. I leaned quite a lot to like how do you say it? I think it's hyaluronic acid.
Hyaluronic acid.
So I think I'm mostly using a Korean skin cream that has that in it. So essentially, because I've got quite oily skin, again, it's not too heavy. So I use that. And then from a kind of a makeup perspective, I think if you're going to invest in anything, invest in your foundation. Ensure that you're using a foundation that's going to like stay put, or at least works with your skin kind of texture, tone, but also like your oiliness. Because that's been a big learning for me, is I think I used to use cheapy foundations and then realised that was working against me most of the time.
Yeah.
I've gone through quite a few. At the moment, I'm really liking Bobbi Brown, so that's what my foundation is at the moment. It's really nice because it's got like a level of coverage that's good, but it's not to the point that I look super caked on. And again, it feels very breathable. I don't feel like my skin is covered by stuff, which is really good. And then lipstick wise, I mean, I need it to stay put because I'm not reapplying all the time. Like, I'm just not doing that. And as I said, I like a red. So I swear by Maybelline Super Stay matte ink stuff because it just stays on.
Okay.
It doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, and it's pretty affordable. But it stays on so well that there are some times when I wake up in the morning when I've forgotten to take my makeup off. And I'm like, okay. And it's literally exactly where it was before. So just to watch out, that's something you need to bear in mind.
I have an influence.
They've got some like different colours as well. So they've got some nudes, but they've also got some brights. So I would highly recommend that.
Okay, heavily influenced. And talk to us about tools and apps. What are the top things in your tech stack that you could not live without?
Oh, I love tools. And so I'm a bit of like a tool addict. I've gone through many. Notion is a big one. Love Notion. It's just the flexibility, the versatility of it. And, I'm dyspraxic, so it's also the ability that I can throw everything in there and it's like searchable and findable. For me is like a huge win. So even if you're not doing fancy things with it, which obviously you can help them out with, but even if it's just in there, it's in there and it's findable. So just for me, that's huge. Other things that I really love, I mean, I'm a Claude girl. I built lots of my business on Claude, just in terms of what you can do from an agent perspective, a project perspective, and just ensuring that everything kind of speaks to each other. that's been really game changing for me. So that's where my allegiances lie in terms of the LLMs at the moment. Again, things shift though, so you always have to keep an eye on what's going on and what tools are doing what, and seeing if that's still a good fit. Canva, I have actually switched allegiance from Adobe. I had my Adobe subscription for a really long time, realised that I hadn't used it for like 6 months. And, you know, because I was able to do so much of it in Canva. And for what I need it to do at the moment, it's much easier. So relying on Canva quite a lot, and also Canva and Claude integrations are getting better and better. So excited about what can happen there. Swear by. So this is a bit of a weird one, but I bank with Anna. I think it stands for absolutely no nonsense accounting, which is kind of got like a little kind of character as the main person, but essentially it's for businesses, and especially kind of like small businesses or businesses starting up. I think they tend to offer like free company registration, or like doing your accounts for free is like the thing when you sign up with them. But why it's amazing is it's like it has a chat feature, so I can literally just chat in natural text to it, and it will hand it over to someone if it needs to be, and they're really fast at getting back to you. They do my accounts, they do my tax, they do my payroll, they do my expenses, they do my invoices, they do my chasing of invoices, and it's just like, it's all in there. It's really easy to use. I know that there are other systems that do that kind of stuff, but I just have found it really intuitive and helpful to have it in one place. From a social media standpoint, I use Metrical for reporting. Super easy, everything's connected in, really easy to publish as well. So I really rate them as well, having tested quite a lot over my time. Sometimes it can be a little bit overly complicated, but that's nice and easy.
I used Metrical for a little bit, actually, until I built a custom thing in Notion that was just for my content. Well, I have a very specific content workflow that I found was very manual and Metrical, and so I had to just like build it myself-ish, which was interesting. But Metrical is really cool, and every social person that I've shown it, they just like fall in love with it instantly.
I think it's like one of those things about out of the box. If you need to do reporting bits, you can just throw stuff in and it does it. So that's really helpful. And I think from a client standpoint, they really appreciate it too, because they don't want tons of time being taken up by reporting. They just want to have like the top view of what's going on. So from that perspective, it's really good because you can share it automatically and make sure that everyone gets emailed over the report.
Oh, hey again. Did you know there are roughly 100,000 London business babes out there? And we're on a mission to reach as many as possible. Enjoying what you hear? To support the hours of work that goes into making this special, you can either A, consider supporting directly as a paid monthly Substack subscriber to also unlock future exclusive content for less than a coffee and a croissant. B, any brands listening? We'd love to explore ways for you to be part of the journey. C, at the very least, on your next co-working date, tell a fellow London business babe about us. Details in the show notes. Now let's jump back in.
Well, now that you've shared with us your personal gems, I'd also love to know about London. So earlier you mentioned that you were based in Paddington. Have you always lived there, or how long have you lived in that part of London?
So I was born in St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, so around the corner from here. Oh. Actually, my daughter was also born there, so that's quite sweet. So shout out to St Mary's, they're awesome there. I was born and lived in Notting Hill Gate when I was younger. Went to school in Kensington, so St Mary Abbots for primary school. Moved out a little bit while I was in secondary school to Kent for secondary school, but came back for university, so went to university in Kensington as well. So I just couldn't help myself but come back to West London. So I've always been a Londoner. I feel quite tied to my identity as a Londoner. I feel like that's kind of, and I feel like when I see like London or Londoners out, there's like a specific mentality that I think you have if you're from London.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I think we were talking about when Bubby arrived about the possibility of moving out, because being in Paddington, the flat is, smaller than I'd like, but that's, the price you pay by being central. So, but we just couldn't find anywhere that we liked to the same extent that we absolutely love living here. So yeah, we've always been around West London. Previously we're a little bit more central, but we're renting, but obviously just go a little bit further out. So W2, but it's still, it's still very central. But I think the thing that makes difference for me is it's really, in West London, there's a really nice mix of the little kind of high streets and pockets there, the architecture, but also there's quite a lot of leafiness, like there's quite a lot of green. So I feel like that balance is really nice.
Is there anything on your London bucket list, even though you've been here for ages?
I think that there's some things that you never get to because you live here. I've never been to the Tower of London, which I feel like I should go to the Tower of London. So that's definitely something that I want to see at some point. It's just you just don't do it when you actually live in a place. I think the other thing that I want to do is I'd love to go see Hamilton. I have not got tickets yet. And again, that's just one of those things I would just love to go see that, because I absolutely love seeing it on Disney Plus, like as a show, but I haven't been able to see it properly live. So that would be another one. I think in terms of eating and drinking, we're quite lucky that being quite central, I get to go to many of the places that I want to go to. So I don't have anywhere bucket list yet in terms of food and drink, although I'm always open to new suggestions. So obviously when I hear new podcast episodes of people saying places, it's always a good thing to check out.
Fair enough. And what are some of your favourite food and drink places in London?
So recently I went to Berenjak.
Yeah. Hard
So
to get a
good.
reservation there.
Yeah, I think we booked like a month in advance. I think it was like a Wednesday afternoon at a slightly odd time, but that worked really well for us for, Bubby being at nursery, so we kind of took it as like a date day, which is nice. But yeah, it takes a while to get a seat, but it's so worth it. So it's a Persian restaurant. It's got an open grill. The like different hummus flavors and like textures are just like phenomenal. Even the breads, like just the breads alone are like, there's like 4 different types of breads and all of them are just mind blowing. So yeah, I highly recommend that if you get a chance. We went to the Soho one, but I think they've got like one in Borough and Mayfair as well. I think they've got some other ones.
Okay, fair enough.
But I think the other ones that I like is there's one around the corner from me called Saru, which I think is Middle Eastern cuisine, but it's really lovely. Again, like lots of like little tapasy bits that you can have. And then I love pizza, so Rudy's is still my favourite pizza. I keep trying lots of other pizza places, but Rudy's is
It's
just
very
the
good.
best. It's just the
It
best.
is very good food. So,
And,
yeah.
really affordable Negronis. I really love a Negroni, so, can't beat that.
Well, you mentioned a lot of like digital collectives and sort of pop-up collectives at the beginning, including Mums Who Build, which is where I met you. Are you part of any in real life spaces in London?
Real life spaces.
So like
That
like physical member club type things.
So I'm not, because I just don't think I'm out of my house enough at the moment. I mean, again, with Glint 2.0 and how we grow, I'd love to do that because, I very much loved going to, clubs when I was in Soho and working in Soho much more. Always on someone else's guest membership. I was not a member myself. But, there was, some really good times had at the clubs in Soho. So I think that's definitely spaces that I'd like to be kind of part of and in the future. But I think the nice thing about some of the online communities that I'm part of, like Mums Who Build, the events that they hold are really nice moments to kind of connect. Pretty Little Marketer holds a couple as well. I think that she's got an event coming up in like September that is kind of a big one. And the Holtz has like co-working sessions, so we go and hang out in Waterloo every month? I think it's every month on one of the days, and just as many people who can come down and like share the space as possible.
And do you have any hobbies for yourself that you do in London? Could be sport, could be wellness, could be anything.
Ooh,
Or anything that you want to do.
Yeah. So, I think eating and drinking probably is a big hobby of mine.
Right.
I absolutely love going to new places and experiencing new restaurants. But I do think that we've got some of the best restaurants and bars in the entire world in terms of the quality and the quantity of them. And I love being in those spaces and seeing what people are coming up with. In terms of hobbies, I love being out in London and walking the streets in different areas. As I said, I'm very near Hyde Park, which is lovely, but also just walking down little muses and finding new streets and taking photography. I do take lots of photos of the different spaces in London and the architecture and little things that catch your eye, because you'll always see something new. I think another thing that I really like doing is I have this thing where there's particular things that you see in different parts of London that are quite interesting that I quite like to take photos of. But at the end of the road, like in the gutter, the things that you find discarded in the gutter in different areas of London are just quite interesting.
Yeah, I
And
can
they
see
usually
that.
dictate quite a lot about the area that you're in.
I'm going to look out for that.
So it's just like, oh, found in this particular area of London. So that's, I mean, like in some of the kind of very well-to-do areas, like there was like a discarded avocado. There's one that was like a whole jar of pickles, So there's some interesting things that can be found that way. So that's always kind of fun spot when you're out and having a walk about. But yeah, I think in terms of like hobbies, with Bubby, we don't have as much time out in London as we'd like. My hobbies in terms of like at home, I am a gamer. I do love my RPG games. If I can get any time to play on my PS5 or my computer. Occasionally I do.
Don't worry if it's a lot to take in. All of the amazing tools, spots and recommendations mentioned by our guests can be found in the Coffee and Oysters guide. Details in the show notes.
I'm going to wrap up with a few questions. And we talked about celebrating wins earlier. What's a win for yourself that you want to celebrate that's recent? And also shout out someone else in the wider community that you want to celebrate as well.
Okay, so who has done something really awesome? Gosh, there's so many people who have done some really amazing things recently. So my maid of honour for my wedding, she's called Kerry. She's absolutely wonderful. She had a baby last year. So became a mum as well for the first time.
Amazing.
And, you know, Liam's had some like health issues and stuff. So she's been really having to grapple with a lot of things with her partner, Connor. So I'm so proud at the things that she's been able to go through in such a amazing, beautiful way and how she's shown up for that. Which again is obviously like a kind of like not a work win, but for me that's a huge thing that she's doing and that she's doing phenomenally. I got to see her recently at Liam's christening, and you know the fact that you know they're so wonderful together and doing so well was, you know, a really beautiful thing to see. So love to celebrate her and everything that she's doing. In terms of what I'm doing, so I've been on a bit of a kind of a fitness journey recently.
Amazing.
In my family there's been some quite difficult health news with some of my family, which has really spurred me on to focus on my health more rather than, I think you have like, oh, I'll get to that at some point, oh, you know, blah, 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 but to really make a difference this year rather than further down the line. I'm really proud of myself for actually sticking to that since the beginning of the year, and I'm now at a point where I'm almost at where I was before my baby. But the fact that I've kept consistent and got to back to kind of where I was, that for me is a huge win so far. I'm not exactly where I want to be. I'm going for like the best shape of my life level, but I'll take where I am right now and the fact that that's, you know, a really big difference from where I was.
Amazing on a journey. You're welcome. And then also I like to say you never know who's listening. So 3 questions. Is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anything that you need help with? And what is your dream collaboration? Again, you never know. So firstly, is there anything that you want to plug or need help with?
So if people want to come to the event, that would be wonderful, and I'd love to see you there. As I was saying, there's loads and loads of expertise in the room. Also, not just from the panel, the other people who are coming are, you know, phenomenal, really interesting people. There's going to be some really interesting discussions. So that's on the 29th of July at Bricks. I'm sure that we'll get a link there so people can kind of have a look at it. Your ticket price includes drinks and some nibbles. Well, I think it's like a, you know, an arrival drink and some nibbles. It's just a really nice space to be able to ask those questions in a quite intimate room. So tickets are quite limited. We don't want it to be too big and for it to not feel like people can actually have those conversations. So yeah, that's probably my big plug. I think. So what was the other question? I've forgotten.
Is there anything that you need help with?
Okay, so I mean anything I need help with. So as I was saying, I'm kind of looking at Glint 2.0 and where we're moving into in the future. So I'm really looking at, you know, what my team looks like and how that next layer of support can look. So I have been working with people, you know, from a kind of a freelance basis, but also DAs. But, you know, I'd love to hear from some people who might be able to support me in that next level of growth and might be interested in supporting from a kind of more of a operations and delivery standpoint. If there's some people in that space, that would be really interesting. I'm kind of building, so I wouldn't be looking full-time, but if there's someone who works possibly fractionally, that could be really interesting.
Fabulous. And then finally, dream big. What is your dream collaboration?
I absolutely love Grace Beverley. I think what she does is phenomenal. I think I buy literally every single thing that she puts out. You know, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll buy that, and I'll buy that, and I'll buy that. So, you know, productivity method, her, you know, her podcast, Tala, also love the stuff that Tala does. So really, really into all of the brands that she builds and the message behind them. I think that obviously now she's going into the mother space and the fact that she is now going to be a working mum and, you know, a mother who's running a business. I think that could be a really nice collaboration in terms of where she's going, and also looking from a B2B standpoint and visibility. Could that be something that we do for mums? Could there be something there that could be quite interesting? Again, that would probably be like an absolute dream to be able to kind of work on some stuff from a business standpoint with her and getting mums to be more visible with their businesses.
I love that. Maybe there's a Glint Mob, Grace, Beverly merge in the future or
somehow. Yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for today. This has been fantastic. Where can people find you?
So I'm mostly on LinkedIn because I find it quite fun, and again, I enjoy all the chat about marketing and everything else. So probably that's your first kind of port of call for me. But also anything if you want to find out about Glint and what we do, glintmarketing.co.uk is our website, and you can kind of dig in there a little bit more about the visibility architecture, and also any kind of tips and information about how to be more visible.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Get in touch at coffeeandoysters@gmail.com. Stay connected at Coffee and Oysters Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And never miss out by subscribing to Substack. Details in the show notes. And most importantly, keep those 5-star ratings coming, and see you next time.